Hi guys, I'm Shmee and welcome back to the channel where today you join me visiting Porsche in Stuttgart, Germany. We're at the factory in Zuffenhausen, but today I'm going to be going for my first drive in the new 911 GT3, a car that I have on order, a future Shmeemobile. So this really kickstarts the journey. We're going to take a full look at it before going out and seeing what this car is like, screaming on the roads up to 9,000 RPM from the 4-litre flat 6. It's an epic machine. The GT line from Porsches are always incredible. But let's see what this one, a future car that I've ordered blind, is really like. Now typically when Porsche release a new GT3 or a new GT3 RS, all of the magazines put it up to the top of their best driver's car of the year, and I think this one's basically done the same, but this is actually the first time I've driven it. Now this car has the 7-speed PDK, the double clutch. You can also get it now again with a 6-speed manual. The previous generation GT3 didn't have a manual option, but I've ordered PDK, and I'm going to do a separate piece with the full specification of my car that's going to be coming at the very end of this year. Today is more about the first impressions, the driving experience, showing you around the car and what it's like. So let's take a closer look and walk around it and talk about some of the details, the stats, the numbers and the facts about the new 911 GT3, the 991.2 generation, the facelift of the 991 car. So it has the 4-litre flat 6, rear mounted still, of course, rear wheel drive, a given as well. The 4-litre was previously found in the GT3 RS, although this is a heavily reworked version, like from the 911R, but reworked again from that, whereas the previous GT3 had a 3.8. It has 500 horsepower, 460 Newton meters, and it screams away up to 9,000 RPM. 9,000 RPM, it's a crazy, crazy number. 0 to 62 miles per hour, 100 kilometers an hour, 3.4 seconds, and the top speed is 197 miles per hour. The manual is quite significantly slower. It actually takes 3.9 seconds, half a second slower to 62 miles an hour, but it goes 1 mile an hour faster, 198. Now as we take a look around, fixed wing naturally, a couple of other, I suppose, distinct GT3 characteristics, the central exhaust tips, the traditional center lock wheels finished in the platinum color here, but a few differences from previous generation. Additional cooling here through these satin black intakes on the rear deck, satin black end plates on the rear wing. This car's finished in the Carrera white, which contrasts nicely with the black parts. Platinum wheels, as I mentioned, carbon ceramic brakes in yellow, standard Porsche brakes, steel brakes are red. Then round the front, it's been redesigned at the front bumper for additional cooling and airflow and aerodynamics. So this car generates as much downforce as the 997, the previous model 911 GT3 RS did, the RS version. So it bodes very well for a future RS too. Great starting platform, and I almost think the styling around the front is quite distinctive of the GT4, and I used to have the Cayman GT4, so there's a lot of similarity, I suppose, coming from there. Options wise, this car has the PDLS LED headlights, which are very nice as well. But let's have a glance at the inside. The familiar Porsche key, give it an unlock, take a little look inside here, where, as I mentioned, 7-speed PDK, but the comfort seats, I feel like a track car needs buckets, a harness, all of that jazz, whereas this car has the Comfort Sports Plus seats, but an Alcantara steering wheel, the Sport Chrono clock on the dashboard, and one of the most frequently discussed options, the front end lift system. Absolutely compulsory in my mind when you have a splitter that, if we come round just to take a look at it, sits this low to the ground. Now Porsche do the sensible thing and make it fairly inexpensively, so if you do break it, it's not carbon fiber and it doesn't cost a fortune, so light scrapes aren't going to make your eyes water at what the cost could be. But that works in tandem with some new fins around the back. So if we come and have a look under here, you can see these fins sitting below the exhaust system, which are again very, very low, and lots of reports of them actually bottoming out, which is quite interesting. Things I've been thinking about in terms of my car soon to be delivered. But let's come round and just take a seat in the driver's side. The red stitch is quite nice, the red against the white, and obviously the black leather and Alcantara mix inside, where we're looking at traditional 911, you know, the 5 dials that we're used to, the large rev counter in the center, going all the way up to 9K. That is crazy. You get the 500 horsepower at 8,250, but this is naturally aspirated heaven, as it should be. And in traditional fashion, the key is on the left. Pop that in, actually turn on the ignition for a second, press the exhaust button to make it a little bit louder, and then it comes into life, burbling away. So this car's fairly well running. I think it's good for a drive. It's got the new interior that I took a look at more when I drove the GTS. So the GTS sits a little bit under this in the line, about 450 horsepower, but above the Carrera and the Carrera S. It's a huge lineup of 911s, but the GT3 is much more to do with track driving, which is what I want to do a lot of with mine. This car is this fairly, I suppose, more road specification, but just listening to it, it's got that rawness, that aggression, that sound. So I'm quite excited to drive it and get a taster of what it's going to be like when I'm out driving my own one of these in the future, which I'm also very much looking forward to sharing with you. And we've got some pretty cool stuff to tell you about that. So stay tuned to the end of the video when I'll run over what we're going to be doing, how we're going to be releasing the car. But for now, let's head out on the roads and see what this car's like, the new Porsche 911 GT3. Off we go then. And this is where looks can be quite deceiving, because you jump into this thing and it feels quite civilized, quite like a normal 911 to be honest. You've got good visibility, you've got a nice big luggage space up front, the frunk, and it just drives, I guess, easily, smoothly, you know, pulls away with no jerking around or any difficulty. But this car's done the Nürburgring Nordschleife in 7 minutes 12.7 seconds, which is very, very quick. So it's a capable machine. I'm not going to be driving it like that today. We're out on the roads naturally, but let's go and see what we can find and have some fun. So heading out of the press office where we're surrounded by nice new model Porsches, and it just, you know, does its thing. Going away, you've got that burble in the background of the flat six. This feels exciting. This is what I've been looking forward to for a while, driving this car for the first time. Just to get a little taster of what this car sounds like. PDK Sport, so everything's a little bit quicker. Exhaust valve back open. Actually, let's go manual on the gears and start dropping them down a few. It's so quick, and then that noise is so raw behind you. Up towards 6,000 there, instant upshift. Just like my memories of driving the previous RS that had the 4-litre engine. It just has this complete spine-tingling sound that carries completely through you. It's not necessarily made to sit in a traffic jam like this, but hopefully we can escape this area and explore this a bit more, because I'm immediately getting that sense back of why I ordered the car from my previous experience driving the GT3 RS, and had there been an allocation available for a previous RS, I would have ordered one at the time. That is why I've gone for the new car, which I'm really looking forward to driving so much more. I just want to get out of this jam so that I can push it a little bit harder and hear it up above 8,000, up towards 9. That sound! That sound! You feel it in every part of your body, right the way up through your back. Every sense is enlightened by what is going on. Wow. Okay, yes, you don't need to shift that much, but have you heard this thing? That shift! My goodness! Wow! The noise it makes right up there too. And downshift, it's so quick. Down to first. Ooh. That is an intense sound. It's just so real and so in your face, I think. The way that you can't avoid that sound. The whole car is feeling it all the way through. And then out again. Amazing. Okay, let's come back down to ground a little bit and not play so much on hitting the red line. What's the car like? Well, as you look backwards, the rear wing, interesting thing here, the RS has such a high wing that it's above your rear view. The GT3 wing is kind of right through the middle. So the car that's behind you, you don't see it, which has its cons, I suppose, unless it's right behind you, in which case it's just underneath. But it's cool seeing those intakes, the two satin black parts on the rear deck, how you can see them just under the wing. In the mirrors, you're looking at the familiar 911 style wide arches, really fat at the back. It's got huge rear tyres, Michelin Sport Cup 2s. I mean, initial feelings, it's super smooth, super usable. You get some of the vibration through the car, so the lightweight flywheel side of things, traditional from the manual I suppose 997 era cars, but and then you do this again. And you just keep it pinned. It's not crazy fast. It's not the fastest thing in a straight line at all, but that's not what this car is about. This car is about aero, cornering, 155 kilos of downforce created by this setup. It's a car that is about just enjoying and I think being fairly approachable to use. So for example, someone like myself, I've got a fair bit of experience in driving supercars, sports cars, but I'm going to try and take my GT3 to the track, learn it more, get used to it, learn and grow with the car. It's not as expensive as some others if anything should go wrong. Consumables, it can be set up in a way to use. I've not really used the ceramics on this car, but I think if you're going to do a lot of track work, it makes sense not to have ceramics on the car, but to go for the regular steel brakes. Let's try and go whichever way this truck doesn't go, just so we can get more open road in front of us. So turning in, flat, grippy, out again. It's just silly. It's just addictively silly. I've just passed the signs of Weissach, the home of Porsche's GT department, where they make these cars like the 918 Spider, the GT2 RS, where they're developed, where they're engineered, where their test track is. Just out on the road, slightly rougher surface, but that's not upsetting the car. You have the option to turn up the suspension, dial it up, and that's immediately noticeably more firm, as you would expect. That's for your track mode, that's for driving it out on, let's say, a fast-flowing racetrack. Oh, we don't want that. That's the traffic information service not being turned off in this car. I'm not even going to try and listen to the hi-fi setup. This one has the Bose hi-fi, which is really quite nice, although strange configuration between some things that it does have and some that it doesn't. But let's play around with the different settings. Let's put it back into the softer suspension, go back into drive, regular on the PDK, so it's obviously going to be in 7th gear at 60 kilometers, and 6th gear at 60 kilometers an hour. Obviously a little bit of a press, it will start going through the gears a little bit, get some feel of that, doing more or less what you want it to do, although sitting in traffic is not what a car like this is designed for. It wants to be let free and go roam and explore, especially on a road like this. So I'm going to ease it back and open up some space in front of me. So if you're not pressing down too firmly, it shifts up really early, but you've got a nice hum to it. Yes, I think there is a bit of drone though, and that's something I've read about with the stock exhaust system on this car, which is already a sports exhaust, obviously, over a standard 911 or a GTS. There's a lot of drone at regular road speeds, like you can hear right now, going on in the background, which is quite unusual for a factory system. There are all sorts of options to fix that. Actually, it really quite reverberates quite strongly and a lot, and the sun's come out, which is lovely, perfect for the day. Pop it back into manual, I think, for me, because that's the way to drive it. Just enjoy some of those revs. 5,000, 6,000, what a sweet spot for holding the car. Just letting it do its thing. It's pure heaven. There's been a lot of talk about the different versions that you can have of the GT3, because obviously you've got the GT3 PDK, the GT3 manual, but you've also now got the GT3 touring package, which deletes the rear wing and makes it look very much like a 911R did. It's got a similar engine, looks very familiar in the sense that it's got the GT3 style bumpers, but it doesn't have a big wing on the back. However, it's not quite as raw, I'm led to believe, as the 911R experience, which when I drove was just truly mesmerizing. Some mountain passes in the south of France in the 911R with Porsche Ultimate was just one of the best days ever. That drive was phenomenal. Car, location, the roads, perfection. Put down the sun visor, they work. Test the usual things, the things you need to know about. But I think for me, a GT3 is a track car. It should have a wing, it should have bucket seats, it should be set up and configured in that way for taking out and being driven on a racetrack. It just feels more naturally what the car is about, the story the car is trying to tell. But we get out now, back onto some countryside roads where hopefully we can explore again, turn it in, just feels good. Let it sing. The car in front of me is probably like, what is going on with this thing in my rearview mirror? I'm not going to be able to shake him here, unfortunately. Solid line I can't cross over, but it's a GT3 that has this ability that you can jump in, drive it hard, and you can feel so much back. So when you're driving it at the edge, you get a sense from the car of what's going on and what it's up to. definitely turning around and driving back the other way. Proper. Ah, I've been here before, this is familiar. Turn it in, nice steering lock. I guess now is the part of the video where I shut up for a moment and I let the car and this exhaust note do some more of the talking. I think you guys quite enjoy listening to that, so let's go, let's have a drive and let's enjoy. Not bad then, not bad at all. This thing sounds mega, there is no debate about that. Oh, I'm loving this day. I can't wait for my one of these to arrive. I think my best way to summarise the GT3 driving experience, outside of the noise that it makes, is that if I didn't already have one on order for myself, I would be doing everything in my power right now to find an allocation and get my name down for a Porsche GT3, because when you think about how much performance and the capability you get for the money with this car, and I'll confess it's actually cheaper in the UK to buy the car with the currency than it currently is in Europe, and I've ordered a European car in euros, so it'll cost me a little bit more, but it's going to live in Europe, left-hand drive, etc. But there's nothing at this price point. It's significantly cheaper than a 570S track pack or an AMG GTR or anything like that. It's a chunk below, but has so much ability, and then it does this. It just sings. It just absolutely sings, and it's a mesmerizing sound in entirety. It's just a brilliant car. It's just a driver's car that's set up with everything to work in harmony. The engine, the chassis, the suspension, the gearbox, the PDK system in here is utterly brilliant. Now, I've not driven a manual one yet, maybe I will in due course, but everybody's been saying that the car is so heavily engineered for the PDK that the manual almost doesn't have the same feel to it, the same ability. It's more of a driver's engagement, of course, because you've got a manual gearbox, but it doesn't have the seamless integration between gearbox and engine, which is something that's so priceless about this 4-litre flat 6 with the 7-speed PDK, and that's why that is easily my configuration for the type of usage I want to do for driving regularly and for track days. It makes it a no-brainer. I think maybe if your car was more a weekend toy, you might want the manual, but depends, different people, different purposes, and I think orders are roughly half and half actually between the two gearboxes, so quite interesting to see which way people go. But let's just keep exploring and keep enjoying, because this has a big smile per mile factor. I feel like this might be getting a little bit repetitive, but it's so good that I just don't care. It's magical. Though it's not just the engine sound, the steering is direct and feels perfectly spot on. The suspension is compliant and gentle even when the roads get a little bit firmer without being too uncomfortable. The car is usable, you feel comfortable and relaxed when you drive it. You're not stressing or worrying about the expense of different parts or the difficulty to be able to see out of it at all. It's just that package that makes it such a wonderful driver's car to experience. And then it's topped off by the engine note, which is just something of its own. And we've had so many generations of 911s across a huge lifespan now. They've made over 1 million of them, for crying out loud. It's an immensely popular sports car. In fact, I think it's the highest in terms of numbers of cars sold sports car in existence. And this, the GT3, is the latest version, the latest culmination of the naturally aspirated side. On the other side, you have the GT2 RS, which is a completely new weapon on its own. 100,000 euros or so more than this, 700 horsepower, but with the turbocharged engine instead of this naturally aspirated, beautiful, crisp sound. But this, I think, is slightly more of a car that you can handle, slightly more car that you could just drive without being completely lost or intimidated by it. And then around town, it's not too fiddly either. It's easy to position. The steering is suitably light at low speed. It's a car that, I mean, even if you had the buckets and 4-point or 6-point harnesses and a cage at the back, you can still get away with using. Alas, great things come to an end, and I'm going to head back towards Porsche Platz, back towards the Porsche base, the factory, and show you around the car in a lot more detail. Like usual, we'll go through some of the interior, talk about some of the details and other parts of the GT3 inside and out, and then I'll tell you about the plans for the future and what we're going to be doing with my car. Well, I'm back where I started, which is actually a really cool location, because in front of me, if I spin the camera around, you can see the actual plant. So over this side is the paint shop. All two-seat sports cars are painted in here. Go up, cross that bridge over to the other side, which is the assembly plant, so the factory where they're all put together, which I've been around before on a private visit. Very cool place. So every single 911 goes across there, which is really quite awesome. Anyway, let's come back down to this car itself, and you might notice it needs oil, not to worry. Standard thing with these cars, but we'll take a glance a little bit more around. It's got the familiar small steering wheel, lovely grip, no buttons or distractions really. You have to do all of that through the central interface, which is updated and has great features now. The red 12 o'clock marking stripe up top, surrounding of course your lights, your wipers on the other side, cruise control down on this side, and then the right side for controlling that display that has a digital screen on it with all sorts of different things. So the navigation display, phone, music, temperatures, performance, I think G-force sensor, chrono, tyre pressures, and your trip information. So lots of things to see in there. You can see I've driven 46 kilometers or so. Short little drive, but an awful lot of fun. So key, your light control, mirrors. Not that much by way of seat controls on these. These are the Sport Plus 4-way seats, so you can go up and down, forwards and backwards, but it's manual adjustment. Slide it forwards, there's a lever under there. Open up the engine bay where you can't see anything. Open up the bonnet, but we'll get to those shortly. The Bose sound system, like I mentioned, coming back through. Got the legendary cup holders. Familiar with these? They still fascinate me, just as a piece of engineering, how over the top this really is. As an item, whoever came up with that idea was a genius, but it works very well, and they're neatly integrated. Decent sized glove box, good amount of stuff in there. You've got a few door pocket kind of things, you know, those you can fit a water bottle or something inside, and then a pocket at the front as well. And then we come down to the center stack, where up top you've got the chrono clock, which looks kind of cool. And then further down, new touchscreen system, so apps not necessarily set up, but there's a whole lot of stuff you can see and do in here. It could actually be a touch faster, but decently responsive, you know. How do we go to, you can shortcut straight to the map there, perspective view, things you expect. And then under that, the climate control, which is a bit fiddly. When you're in park, you can't actually, from the driver's view, see what's going on here, although that's the passenger side, so technically maybe you don't need to. You button to auto or sync it up is on that side. We've got heated seats, all the windows related heating issues, buttons, features. On that side, the direction of the air conditioning, and then further down you've got your button hazards lock, PDK Sport, suspension, ESC, traction control, sports exhaust, and the lift. And then there's a small little armrest here with a charging pad and a USB port for your phone and whatnot. Where in the back you've also got a little storage cubby, but that is rather awkward to reach from the driver's position. And then just carpeted in the rear, of course, 2+2 configuration is done away with in the GT3, but that does mean there is a huge hatch or area to store stuff. And if you fold the seats forward, which are done fairly easily, you can obviously get stuff in and use all this space for luggage transportation in addition to the front storage area. So plenty of room there. Just back to the dashboard, speedo goes up to 350. The top speed of 197 miles an hour, I think, is 318 kilometers an hour, so somewhere up there. Having the whole speedo compressed into that tiny area though, you can't really make out how fast you're going, hence the digital speedo in the center, and then your oil, water temperatures and things, pressures, all located around at the outsides. So let us turn the key, switch it off, pull the handle. GT3 has the actual fixed handles, unlike the RS, which have the pull strings, although the GT4 got pull strings, which was a nice touch. And the key that's shaped like a car. We're familiar with those, very traditional. GT3 badging on the digital display. So step out, come for a wander around. Another glance at the wheels and tyres. We're actually 305 at the rear. I said earlier, I think 325. 325 is the RS, 305 on the GT3, but the center locks, the platinum finish on the 5 twin spoke. I love that wheel design. I've always thought it looks super cool. Sticky rubber, Sport Cup 2s. Really good tire choice actually, because you can drive them. They're not crazy when the weather's bad, but they give you a lot of grip when the weather is good. The front size do we have at the front? Cannot see right at this second. Up there, 245. Okay, still decently fat front rubber too. And then I just think, especially on the Carrera white, the contrast with the black, the satin black, actually works really well. Having the black option lights as well, rather than standard, which is more silvery, is a good look. And then the black lower side skirts as well. Some people choose to have that painted, but in my eyes, if you have that painted, it gives you too much volume of colour at the side of the car, and this is slightly sportier like this, blending in around the whole car. Working really quite nicely. Slightly glossy twin tailpipes in the middle of the back. Black writing for the Porsche GT3 logo. And then the rear lights. So the rear lights changed with the facelift. The previous .1 lights were flat, so to speak, across here. They have this new 3D styling to them on the facelift. But all in all, it's a pretty incredible car, really, isn't it? It looks amazing, and it's so easy to drive, yet the performance is just crazy. So let's go on and talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing with my car. And the first thing I'm going to be doing, a video I'm going to shoot later today, but upload to you guys in the near future, is to do the big spec reveal, to reveal what my specification of my car is going to be. Then we'll be back here to go into that assembly plant opposite me to see my car being built. I'm going to be able to film and reveal for you guys and see the car for the first time as a physical car as it's being built on the production line. So that's really quite exciting. Then at the end of the year, it will be time to head towards delivery and ultimately get it out on the road. But I can tell you one thing, the colour is epic. Stay tuned for that. The colour I've chosen, I think, is so ridiculously cool. I am very excited to share it. Anyway, I have had an awesome outing today. What a wonderful machine to drive. I am very excited about mine. My first drive was everything that I hoped it was going to be. So thanks for coming along and joining me for today's adventure. If you'd like to see more with my car when it arrives, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you click the little bell as well to get notifications when the latest videos go live. But that is it for this time. Thanks as always for watching, and I'll catch up with you guys very soon. Cheers!